Okay, everybody, here we go. This is Kinesiology 231. This is a continuation of cardiovascular endurance testing. Specifically, this presentation is in regards to the YMCA cycle ergometer test. Now, this test is done almost exclusively on this make and model of bike, this Monarch Ergometer 828. Now, there's different variations and different bikes out there, but the big thing you have to look out for when you do a YMCA is there's a certain protocol and requirement for the bike to match the protocols for the YMCA. So for example, every time there is one pedal revolution, this, in theory, should be geared such that the flywheel travels 6 meters for every one pedal revolution. And so whether it's a Monarch or another bike, that ratio has to be in place because all of the testing protocols are based off of the performance of the person, and those are all calibrated towards this bike. And it's the same thing with the results. They're all calibrated based off of that criteria where one pedal crank equals 6 meters of traveled distance. So just keep that in mind, whether it's here or a quiz or perhaps when you're in a lab somewhere else. So the YMCA is a multi-stage test, and it progresses to the client to the point of 85% of predicted maximal heart rate. And it uses 3-minute stages to do this. There's an example of a test over here to the right. This will just click and take you right out. You can feel free to link it out from the actual presentation that'll be embedded in Blackboard in our class. So for the equipment itself for the test, you need a bike, you have to have an ergometer, you have to have a metronome because you want the person to be able to stay at 50 revolutions per minute. So you want that cadence to be consistent. You'll need a stopwatch to measure your 3-minute segments. And you also need a heart rate monitor and blood pressure equipment to be able to take heart rate and blood pressure, and then an RPE scale as well. Okay, so let's get into the actual procedures of a test. So what's kind of quirky, and there's a couple little hiccups in here I want you to pay attention to. It's about 6 beats per minute versus 5 beats per minute. When do you take the actual measurements? There's some quirky little things and nuanced things you have to pay attention to. So you have these different workloads, if you will, and they come in 3-minute intervals. So for example, when you start this test, you have minute 1 is started at 150, and it's 150 kilograms per meter per minute, and that's done for 3 minutes. You take your first heart rate reading in the last 15 to 30 seconds of the second minute and the third minute. Now those two readings, if they're not within 6 beats of each other, then you have to continue the test because you need to get to the point where the person's heart rate is a little more rhythmic, and you want them to have that beat structure within the required 6 beats or less per minute. Now it gets a little bit tighter as you go through the test. Now with this test, you'd like to have the heart rate in between 110 beats per minute and 85% of age predicted maximal heart rate. And if you get over 85, you're terminating the test, and you're also terminating the test if there's any kind of issues as noted in the previous presentation. So let's go ahead and take a look here. As we progress through this shows table 11.12 on page 251. I have to tell you that's actually on page 252 in your book, just for reference. But when you look at this and you get into the first segment, right, and you get into the first stage of the test, you've gone through minute 1, you've gone through minute 2, you've taken a heart rate, you've gone through minute 3, you've taken a heart rate, and they're within the 6 beats. Wherever their heart rate falls at that point dictates how the rest of the test goes. If they're below 80 beats per minute or above 100 beats per minute, makes a difference. If they're between 80 to 90 or 90 to 100, it makes a difference, as we'll see. So if we do a look ahead here at this is right from the book. This is 11.12, excuse me. If, for example, somebody is really fit, we put this workload on them and they end up having less than 80 beats per minute, they're going to have a harder workload to get the response that we want to have a valid test. We put the same workload on somebody else who's deconditioned, they're going to have greater than 100 beats per minute. So what happens is when you get into the second stage, somebody who is highly conditioned will need a higher workload, where somebody who is deconditioned will need a lower workload. And that flows through for the remainder of the test. So it's not like you jump back and forth between these brackets. Once we determine a person is in the 80 to 90 beats per minute bracket, they're going 600, 750, 900. That's it. You're going 750, 900, 1050. That's it if they are a conditioned individual. So it's not like we have to worry about jumping back and forth. Once we get through the first 3 minutes and we take those 2 heart rate readings, that dictates where the person is going forward. So let's take a look at how that plays out. We have a screen grab with 3 different areas in the book. And if we look at this, the first thing we did is we determined the person's age-adjusted maximal heart rate at 167 beats per minute. The person is 23 years old, excuse me, 220 minus their age gives us 197. 197 times 0.85 gives us 167. All right, so we got that math. You guys should know how to do this by now. As a result, when they start the test, we go ahead and set the workload as noted for 150 kilograms per minute, per meter per minute. And so we know that 150 kilograms per meter per minute. Over here, we take a heart rate after 2 minutes, that gives us 88 beats per minute. We take a second heart rate after 3 minutes, that gives us 88 beats per minute. So our average of the two comes out to 88 beats per minute. As noted earlier, that's going to take us up here into this segment where we're at 80 to 89 beats per minute. So now for the remainder of the test, the second stage is at 600, the third stage is at 750, the fourth stage is at 900. And so as you look at this, you can see stage 2, 600, stage 3, 750, stage 4, 900. And we go ahead and take our heart rate readings at the ends of the second and third minute within each one of those stages. All right, so let's go ahead and now take the next step with this. We have our range, we know where we're working, we know the workloads that are appropriate, and we go ahead and we have this participant, and we began at 150, got it. We took our heart rate at the end of the second and third minute. We know it's 88 beats per minute for the average, and that put us at a workload of 600, 750, 900. Got it. So we go ahead and crank them up to 600 kilograms per meter per minute, and we go ahead and take their heart rate during the last 15 to 30 seconds of the 5th and 6th minute. So that's represented here. We get 132 and 136. That gives us an average of 134, right? So we get 134 beats per minute. They're within their work range, which is great. We're right there. And as we do this, we go ahead and go, okay, 134 is over the 110, but you'll notice in the first minute, that first minute was not over the 134. So even though the average shows it, they're not in that desired work zone. And also, the other thing we look for is now if it's within 5 beats, not 6, as noted earlier. Go ahead, we increase the workload to 750 to try to get the response that we want. So we go ahead and work them. We take their heart rate, we got 153, 159, which gives us an average of 156, got it. But you'll notice this is 6 beats difference. That tells us we need to proceed with the test because they're now within 5 beats. So we go ahead and crank up the workload, and we crank it up to 900, and then we go ahead and we get them within their 110 and their 85%, and we have them within 5 beats. So at minute number 11, minute number 12, we take a heart rate measurement, and we can see 166 to 168, they're within 5 beats, they're within their range, perfect. We have all the data points that we needed to be able to calculate this out. So carry this over. The hardest part about VO2 max from the YMCA ergometer is quite frankly the calculations and the way they want you to do it in the book. So with that, the reason why it's so labor intensive, is because it becomes like a plot chart type deal where you have to map everything out on a graph. Now, thankfully, it's gotten to the point where we can go ahead and use technology to our advantage. And xrx.net has a wonderful calculator online. So what will end up happening for, say, maybe one of your classroom lab assignments or online lab assignments, what will end up happening is I'll provide you the basic information with their age, with their sex, how much they weigh, and then you'll have to calculate everything out like you saw previously, step by step. And then from there, you'll have stage 1, stage 2 for their watts, and you'll also have their heart rate that you've read at those times. Plug and chug those in and calculate, and then you'll have your answers here. So from those answers, I'll expect you to have a write-up, perhaps 1 paragraph or so, just to encapsulate what your interpretation of the results are. All right, guys. So like I said, the YMCA itself, the test is not that hard. It's pretty much predictable. You have these different tranches where you have to take people through. The workloads are well defined. The hardest part is or are the calculations, and hopefully we're able to make that a little bit easier, and we'll give you the opportunity to really interpret those results as opposed to spending a lot of your time grinding away on equations. Feel free to email with questions. Thank you so much, guys.